Wow, what an eventful week it has been, from Hollywood-like prison breaks, damning video leaks of senior judicial officers, to heightened political activity that now has the IEBC waving the slow down flash sign. Well, it is only 261 days to the next poll date, and even as we anticipate the election of a new president, we are also counting down the number of days left before President Uhuru Kenyatta exits. Could there be a scenario that could see his term extended, and if so, by how many days? This is Inside Politics, and my name is Freddy Ndimuli. Now, ODM leader Raila Odinga was in Trans Nzoia County on Saturday to popularize his Azimio la Umoja campaign. This comes after a massive tour in several regions across the country. But it is the tours in central region that have left his opponents' tongues wagging, accusing the region's governors of forcing Raila on the people of the mountain. But who are the point men Odinga is using for his bid in the region? KTN's Daniel Kariuki has that story.
After touring Lamu County in Coastal Region, ODM leader Raila Odinga is headed to Trans Nzoia County.
He has moved across the country, but he has never come to Trans Nzoia. You know very well Trans Nzoia is the epicenter of peaceful coexistence. When you talk about peace and cohesion, and then you talk about the cosmopolitan nature of Trans Nzoia, this is exactly where the handshake makes a lot of meanings.
Odinga has toured Rift Valley, Coast, Northeastern, Ukambani and Central Kenya regions and parts of Nairobi. Mount Kenya has been the epicenter of the presidential aspirants' campaigns as they seek to consolidate base. Recently, after jetting back to the country, Odinga toured Nyandarua County under the invitation of Nyandarua Governor Francis Kimemia.
Tukisema karibu baba, mambo hapa engineer, nimebrief baba, anayemebrief Uhuru wa Kenyatta, kuna mambo atatangaza, nimempatia shida za hospitali hapa, shida ya maji, shida ya stima, shida ya vijana kukosa kazi, shida ya sisi maendeleo yetu hapa. Engineer, hii town iwe na maji, na iwe na swali system. Kwa hivyo sitaki kuchukua maneno mengi. Huyu ndio tunataka tuende na yeye.
About 7 governors have endorsed Odinga's presidential bid and have been used as the entry point of ODM boss to the region. The 7 being Kiambu Governor James Nyoro, Derito Mureithi of Laikipia, Embu Governor Martin Wambora, Kiraitu Murungi of Meru, Tharaka Nithi Governor Muthomi Njoki, and Nakuru Governor Lee Kinyanjui.
We shall plan and coordinate structured engagement with the region, focusing on elected leaders, community leaders, business leaders, farmers organizations, the faith organizations, and key opinion leaders and shapers in the region.
Kulikuwa tumeambiwa kwamba baba hawezi akatembea kwa mlima, akifika huko watu hawatamkubali. Ni ukweli ama ni uongo? Ni ukweli ama ni uongo? Tumekaribisha baba. Tumekaribisha baba.
Mlima anaanza kushinda tinga. Tena mimi sihitaji ruhusa kutoka kwao. Mimi sihitaji. Si mimi nakuja. Si mlima Kenya. Si mimi ni Mkenya. Ama sivyo? Kama nakuja kwa mlima, mimi nakuja nyumbani.
However, Murang'a Governor Mwangi wa Iria and Nyeri Governor Mutahi Kahiga are yet to declare their stand, while Kirinyaga Governor Anne Waiguru joined UDA party in support of the deputy president, who has accused a section of Mount Kenya governors of forcing Odinga to the residents in the region. The 7 governors have been organizing meetings for Odinga in the region and accompanying him to various meetings. Odinga is said to have welcomed their plans and memoranda to him. But will the governors as Odinga's appointment in Central help in garnering more votes for the ODM leader come 2022? Only time will tell. Daniel Kariuki, KTN News.
And that's where we kick off our discussion this morning. And allow me to introduce my panelists this morning. In studio with me is Mark Bichachi, communications strategist, and Dismas Mukua, Duke of Mosocho, political risk analyst. Good morning.
Good morning.
Karibuni sana. Joining us by way of Zoom is Hesbon Owila, media and communications expert as well. Good morning, Hesbon. I hope you can hear us.
Good morning, Fred. Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
Karibu sana. Now, we start off with that story and the fact that in recent weeks we've seen more and more of Raila Odinga traversing these counties and the regions this past week, central Kenya, Mount Kenya region, and the fact that he's going around accompanied by governors from that region. We saw the same when he was in Ukambani, and he was accompanied by 3 governors of Kitui, Machakos, and Makueni. And in as far as political strategy is concerned, I want us to start from there. Is it working? Do you think that this is the best way for him? Because 7 out of 10 governors from the Mount Kenya region were involved in Raila Odinga's visits there. Let's start with you, Mark.
You know, Fred, what is critical to be understood is that governors are the most popularly elected people in any county. Because as far as the county citizens are concerned, it is the governor who's most critical to the functions of the county and to the functions of the dreams and aspirations of the people. Now, let us look at a historical background, and not too far. Let us look at how William Ruto ascended the mountain. He has used sitting MPs, who are the second most popularly elected people in any county. Now, the question is, does a governor have more clout than an MP in any given region? The answer is yes. And the question then we have to ask ourselves is not whether governors will have impact or not, it's whether will they have impact in time to the next election. That is the key question. Now, given the numbers that we are seeing and the traction that Raila Odinga is getting, the answer is a definite yes. And the reason why I'm saying yes again is also because I never thought I would live to see the day when Raila Odinga would get crowds in Central. I never thought I would see the day where Raila Odinga would be polling the numbers he's polling within Central Kenya. So is it working? Yes. But the question I keep asking myself is, why the schism? Why do we have governors supporting Raila and MPs supporting William? It's a funny thing. Now, I can only conclude based on the tasks that they do. Governors are executive. They've had a job to do. They know what it takes to get things on the ground. Parliamentarians talk shop. That's primarily what they do. So perhaps this is an indicator of a result of the peace that Raila Odinga afforded Uhuru Kenyatta to get work done, as Uhuru popularly says. And maybe that is the question. Is this going to shape up into a political campaign where there is one side that is doing very populist politics and doing it well, and the other side that is doing developmental politics and, in my view, doing it well as well? So who will win? Mm-hmm. That is the key question for me.
Yes, it's also interesting to note, Dismas, that most of these governors are seeking re-election at the county level. Most of them are one-term governors. Because they do have term limits, the MPs do not. Most of them are also seeking re-election endlessly. Do you think that that has anything to do with the kind of politics going on now?
And in my view, your question, that's where the story is. First of all, to buttress what Mark Bichacha has indicated, Kenya has got 48 governments, one headed by President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta at the national level, and the other 47 governments. Mm-hmm. So you're having heads of various governments at the county level putting their bets on Raila Amolo Odinga. And as you've indicated, a number of them, most of them actually, are serving their first term. Mm-hmm. So essentially what they've done is they're taking a bet on Raila Odinga, that they're even willing to lose their political positions for supporting Raila Odinga. And you know, for the longest time, the Tanga fellas have been telling the entire world that Mount Kenya is under key and lock for UDA. That if you're not in UDA, probability of you losing your seat is 100%. But these governors, the likes of Francis Kimemia, Nderitu Mureithi, Nyoro, have indicated in black and white that we are going to support Raila Odinga even if it means we are going to lose our positions. But just ask yourself a big question. Politicians are known to be very crafty, they're known to be rational human beings, and they're known to drive their selfish interests. So tell me, which politician would align himself to Raila Odinga if he knows that is a straight red card, if he knows that he's going to serve one term? So in my view...
The same could be said for the members of parliament who are supporting the deputy president.
Well, you see, for the members of parliament, they started their support a long time ago. Others started 4 years ago. There's a group which started 10 years ago. You know, for them, they bought into the into the Ruto shareholding company long time ago. So for them, they are locked in. They may not afford to move at this stage. But here you're having governors who are coming very late in the day, the 11th hour. And my suspicion is, the way people keep on saying that when they secure ground, they can feel the ground. But that's the first issue. The second issue, why the Ruto allies and sycophants and supporters are very furious, is simply because the governor supporting Raila Odinga have punctured the propaganda they've been driving on. You know, the bandwagon effects that are, if you are not with working with Ruto, then you are saying bye to the political space. You are really saying bye. So by people joining Ruto, by these governors saying they're aligning themselves with Ruto, then you know that philosophy collapses. You can't go to town anymore. And number three, and this has been the issue with Raila Odinga, the anthropological fear for Raila Odinga in central Kenya. When you ask majority of the people in central Kenya for the longest time possible, why don't you like Raila Odinga? They will not give you a reason, but you know they do not like him. So even for Francis Kimemia to come on board and say that we have demonized Raila Odinga for donkey years and we accept liability, but right now we have enjoyed or encountered the Damascus moment, now is our guy. That sends a very strong message to the voters that is going to be a level playing field. And finally, the deputy president has been campaigning in central Kenya for 9 years. And I suspect there's not a single village in Mount Kenya where William Samoei Ruto has not been. You know, he's got octane energy, he's got very good logistics, obviously paid by the taxpayer Mura, and he's traversed the entire of Mount Kenya. So for him, when it happens, there are governors who are in touch with the ground are actually moving towards Raila Odinga. It makes him very nervous. And you see, they've done a lot of propaganda work, saying that if you move to Raila Odinga, you're losing your seats. Even others saying that, wait a minute, governors are not consequential. But when they get Anne Waiguru, they go to the top of Mount Kenya, literally, and say Hail Mary and, you know, break into dance and song. Okay. So you begin to wonder. And this is what we've been talking about, the toxic politics. You know, fake news, lies, deceits, and all this kind of stuff. Which is all part of the game. Yeah, which is all part of the game. However, we must discourage that. Because, you know, for Mura or Nafula or Wanjiko, they expect our leaders to be honest. That when you make a promise, like for instance, you recall, even in my village, you are told we are going to have an international stadium by William Samoei Ruto. But folks in Mosocho have not interacted with that stadium. So, in my view, we should start penalizing leaders who engage in toxic politics. Yes, but Hesbon, in as much as we may say that Raila Odinga has been able to access the Mount Kenya region by aligning himself with governors, William Ruto has done a pretty good job just by moving around with the members of parliament over the last 1 year or so. He's way ahead even in the kind of polling that we've seen in recent weeks, even in that region alone.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. That's true. William Ruto, I think, has aligned himself with numbers. Because if you compare the number of MPs and the number of governors, definitely MPs are a lot more. And then there's that creation of perception that, you know, he has entrenched himself in the Mount Kenya region. And then secondly, you know, William Ruto has been working with the president. So for the two campaign periods that they've had, I think he had access to the Mount Kenya region, and in most instances, I think the deputy president is the one who used to speak passionately in these political campaigns. So he endeared himself to the people, you know. But I think the politics of this country has shown us enough times that different elections, especially the transition, you know, elections, when we are having transition of power, are uniquely peculiar, so to speak. And therefore, the dynamics of 2013 are likely to play in 2022, simply because there's going to be a change in power. But then if you look at the cloud that the governors bring in terms of entrenching themselves into, you know, the counties that they lead, I think it is a lot more pronounced than what an MP, you know, brings to the table. For the simple reason that when a governor was campaigning in 2017, the governor traversed the entire country, and MP only covered the region. Therefore, by working with, you know, governors from Mount Kenya region, I think Raila is himself appending, you know, his candidature to the tentacles of these governors. And there's a sense in which if they manage to use, you know, the hierarchy that these governors have built over time to penetrate the entire counties from the top level to the basic level of the MCAs. And never forget that, you know, when a governor is running the country, the county, the governor understands the powers of that county. simply because he gets sentiments even from the MCAs in the bills that are passed in the county assemblies, in the budgets in the county assemblies. So the governor has this overarching picture of what is going on in the in whichever county they live. But that in itself does not mean that the work for Raila Odinga is cut out. The question now is, how does he, capitalize on this, leverages on this, and entrenches himself, not just, by walking around with these governors in political rallies, but going behind the scene after the rallies, after the numbers that you see on TV and the perception that is created that, he's succeeding in climbing the mountain. He needs to understand the sentiments that he's leaving behind. But as I've always said, I don't think Raila Odinga needs to be introduced to the mountain and to be campaigned for in the mountain. I think the biggest thing that Raila needed was access to the mountain. I think the rest, Raila has demonstrated over time that he has the interest of the people at heart, and given an opportunity to access these people and speak to these people, I think it's not difficult to see that it's just a matter of time, and the gap between the deputy president and Raila Odinga probably will take a new inflection.
Okay, and what kind of message is this sending? Because it is one thing what the deputy president is doing. He's much closer, is being seen as being much closer to the people down there. He's interacting with the leaders who are closest to the people down there. That's the members of parliament who are much closer to the electorate. Isn't it a fact that some people will see him as being too detached from the electorate by going for people of a higher seat, that governors are way too up there for many people?
One thing that we must understand about the brand William Ruto and his politics is we must understand that he's chosen to do a hybrid of Daniel Toroitich arap Moi and Raila Odinga. I'll tell you what the hybrid is. If you remember the reign of Daniel Toroitich arap Moi, the late president, you'll remember that State House used to be a place that everyone wants to visit. You'll remember that he had delegations. You'll remember that he'd stop by the side of the road and he'd buy bananas. And you'd remember that he loved going to church. He was in church every Sunday. Now, if you look at that, is William Ruto that person? Yes. Every chance he gets to nowadays buy maize, he will take tea in a kibanda, he will do all of those things. So that is William Ruto politics. So it's not just about him being close to the MPs. It's also about the fact that we sponsor as a people meetings in Karen every other day since COVID started, where if you want to go have a handshake in those now famous stairs, you can do so. On top of that, he opened a church within the precincts of the deputy president's residence. I saw a letter from the Muslims, I think, asking for the same treatment, but that's neither here nor there. So he's got that ability. It has been his campaign methodology to be close to church, to call people from different regions, and to sit with him and talk to him. In fact, in as far as accessible politicians are concerned, everyone knows that William is that much accessible. Now, at the same time, William has borrowed from Raila Odinga and perfected grievance politics. He's perfected complaining. He's perfected saying Big Four is not working. So he has the sentiment of the people who feel frustrated, whether it's by the economy or by how COVID was handled, whatever it is. So that's why William Ruto would look and seem to be in touch with the people. However, Raila Odinga has been that for a long time. He's been the guy who's been complaining about corruption. He's been the guy who's led the charge for change in this country. However, he is at a transitional phase. And what I mean by transition is for the last 4 years, I have seen a Raila Odinga I've never seen before. I've seen a Raila Odinga who's sober. I've seen a Raila Odinga who made a deal with Uhuru Kenyatta and has actually stuck it through. I've seen a Raila Odinga who seems to have mellowed in his politics and is more keen on finding pragmatic solutions and bringing people together than he used to be in terms of it's Raila Odinga or the highway. So this mellowed Raila is also what is endearing him to the people of the mountain, because that anthropological fear that Dismas alluded to before has been eroded. This is the guy, more than William Ruto, who stood behind a Kikuyu president. president, who has stood there even when it was thick for him to do so, when it was 16% VAT for fuel, for example. So is that stickability going to endure him? Because these two candidates have different problems. Raila Odinga needs to get into the mountain and appeal to a new voting bloc and a new generation. William Ruto has the problem of even proving that he has the base that he already claims to have. So these are the two dynamics that they've got to face. And the question is, and Raila Odinga's ability to connect the people to people is without question. He's done it times above number. Question is, can he do it to a new generation?
Exactly, and that's a question because we've seen him adopt this kind of strategy not just in the Mount Kenya region. We saw the same in Ukambani, where he was holding a rally accompanied by 3 of the governors from that region, and the deputy president was on the other end of the region, moving around with members of parliament and former leaders of the area. So the question is, will it work the same way that it worked in Ukambani, or it's working in Ukambani, and the same thing will work in Mount Kenya region?
I choose to look at it from 2 different perspectives. When you are working with sitting governors and you want to run for presidency, it immediately takes away one huge burden, which is the cost of logistics. So for Raila Odinga today running, he's not a member of the national government, he's not a president in the presidency, he's running as a private citizen. When governors invite you to your region, they take care of the logistics. So they do all the mobilization. You do not need to be worried over that cost.
Still a taxpayer's expense.
A taxpayer's expense, obviously, yeah. But the same still happens with William Samoei Ruto. Yes. So for William Samoei Ruto, it's the presidency which takes care of that cost. But for Raila Odinga, it's the governors. So Raila Odinga, I would imagine he doesn't need to get resources directly from his pocket. So that is a huge burden. And these governors who are sticking out with Raila Odinga, they know that if Raila is not a success, then there are going to be chapters in political history in Kenya. There are going to be footnotes. So they'll go the extra mile to be sure that on the worst case scenario, Raila Odinga wins. But on the best case scenario, they retain their seats and also Raila Odinga wins. But look at what the deputy president has been talking about. I mean, the remarks on Kiraitu Murungi, that was really unacceptable. And you know, when you make those kind of remarks, you attack Munya and you attack Kiraitu Murungi. So essentially, you are attacking the entire Meru community. In as much as you may have the local senator with you, but people will still feel nervous that this gentleman has no respect for our people. And I saw an old man saying that in the Meru traditions and societies, if you want to insult a man, you ensure that you only insult him in the presence of his peers. Women are not supposed to be around. Children are not supposed to be around. So now they're saying, look at this gentleman who is insulting Kiraitu Murungi, an old gentleman. That is unacceptable. But you must give William Samoei Ruto credit that in as much as he's hanging out with these MPs, whose probability of getting re-elected is only about 20%, he's got capacity to go to a constituency and run up to 10 meetings in a day. He's got that high energy, and it seems to be giving him positive dividends because, you know, people want to see their leader. So if you make many trips to, say, Murang'a, you do Murang'a, say, in a month, you make 10 trips to Murang'a, even the character assassination that has been thrown your way when you've been accused of engaging in all this manner of antisocial behavior, corruption, and stuff like that, then the people begin to change their perspective. So as we have this conversation, anybody who says that Ruto's goose has been cooked, they're making a big mistake. That is going to be a force, and not just for the next election. It's going to be a force for a long time because, you know, he's in his 50s. And he's growing his political capital in a manner that has not been seen anywhere. The kind of political capital William Samoei Ruto holds today, even his age mates are in a state of shock. Because look at his age. And look at the transition from Youth for KANU, and you know all the other stories we are told, the meats that he used to sell chicken, obviously, which is a lie, because that market did not exist when I was supposed to be selling chicken. But he's been able to grow very serious political capital. That are the people say in the One Kenya Alliance, even Raila Odinga, they actually die of envy. Because at some stage, not long ago, he was Raila Odinga's junior. Right now, they're playing almost in the same league. So that is a man you cannot wish away.
On the same league.
Yeah, they're playing in the same league. And he has even overtaken a number of the One Kenya principles. Because if you look at the headlines today in the Standard and also in the Nation, the One Kenya Alliance members have been told, wait a minute, come to the table, we cut deals. And who is available to cut a deal with you? Raila and Ruto. So Ruto is a man that, with all the character assassination, is a man you cannot ignore.
When it could also be argued that Raila Odinga settled for the governors because he came in a bit too late in this race. William Ruto already had a head start and already had the following of the majority of the members of parliament. And so he had already gone with that party. Raila had no other way but to settle for governors. Hesbon? Do we still have Hesbon on the line?
Yes.
Did you hear my question?
Yes. Yes,
Go ahead.
I don't think it's a question of Raila coming in late. I think it's a question of Raila redefining himself. You know, that combative Raila that will keep the government on toes. Immediately the government is elected, up to the time of the election, is a Raila of the past. I think we've seen what Raila has done. He's in the last 7 years, he probably saw that Kenyans needed much more than just the politics of DC, politics of confrontation. And immediately after the 2017 general election, we saw Raila redefine himself, went to the handshake. You know, President Uhuru Kenyatta, who did not even have to, get into the handshake because he had been sworn in as the president. So the interest of the country took precedence for President Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila. And I think consistently, that is what we've seen in Raila in the last 4 years. And it's not a question of whether he is coming in too late or he's still jittery. It's just a question of this is a strategy that has worked for most of the governors, I think, because having a conducive environment to deliver on the people of this country, both at the national level and the county level, benefits Kenyans. And I think most governors, and not just the governors from the Mount Kenya region, have actually seen the sense, in having a working relationship, in pointing out things that are going wrong, and being constructive in finding out how to correct these things in the interest of the public. And therefore, that essentially means that it was only prudent, or I think working with governors lent itself easily, both for Raila and the governors, because they saw the systems work. I mean, you listen to what Governor Oparanya says, and you're thinking, well, in as much as they're in the same political party, this is a governor who is thinking of ascending to the next level. But he has seen what has happened, and he has decided that he's not going to be swayed into the tribal cocoon and say this Luhya thing. He's actually lobbying Luhya presidential candidates to see the sense. But let me come back to one thing about the deputy president. I think he's been the front runner. He has overtaken so many politicians who are, way ahead of him in the pecking order as recently as in 2007 and 2013. Which basically tells you the kind of ambitious politician that the deputy president is, and credit to him for the political capital that he has managed to accumulate, and the redefinition that he has given our politics. Because right now, what you're looking at is a situation where it is not the crowds that you pull, because no one is not pulling the crowds. I mean, Raila went to Asingishu, pulled the crowds. Ruto went to Nyanza, pulled the crowds. Both of them are pulling the crowds in the coastal region and in Mount Kenya region. So it comes back to something called what are the substantive issues that they're addressing. And I can tell you without any fear of contradiction that two things now will come back, that the deputy president has to attend to critically. One is that people will now start addressing issues and track records. And he has to position himself because there are so many things about his track record. There are so many things about the issues that Kenyans need to talk about, including corruption, that if they were brought to the table, then it will portend a totally different ballgame for him. And then number two, if you've overtaken politicians who are naturally more senior in terms of age and longevity in the political scene, then it makes it difficult for them to play second fiddle to you. And that is another struggle that the deputy president has to deal with. That, in the pecking order, if you look at, all these politicians who are gunning for the presidency, he has overtaken Kalonzo, he has overtaken Honorable Musalia Mudavadi, and of course, those are the two most critical players as far as the Oka axis is concerned. So what does that tell you? That it's going to be very difficult for Kalonzo, for instance, to play second fiddle to the deputy president. And there is a high likelihood that because of that difficulty, then Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka will not go with the deputy president. And then number two, Musalia Mudavadi is a lot more senior. Actually, in 2007, When Raila had ODM with the Pentagon, Musalia Mudavadi was the second in command. And I don't think it is even prudent for Musalia Mudavadi to lower his political stock to go and negotiate for a position in William Ruto's, coalition. So the deputy president has to be a lot more tactical in the way he's going to handle the issue of having amassed this political capital and is now at equal with Raila Odinga. For Raila Odinga, it's very simple. I mean, he's sort of senior. So these guys can only angle for other position. And I think I've made my argument that for Raila Odinga, people don't even need to angle for positions. We know what our politics is. And you know how things change and how these memorandums that they agree on sometimes are just thrown out of the window. So it's probably for him a question of who is more interested in his political capital.
Okay.
This person who will go and galvanize people around Raila Odinga without asking for something immediately, but leverage on the fact that the political capital that Raila Odinga has is something that would put him in a better state going forward.
Okay, and of course it makes for a very interesting wait and see moment between now and August 9th next year, because it's only 261 days to the next general elections. Those alliances that we keep talking about, will they happen? And if they do, what will they mean? After the break, we come back and discuss matters